Hey yo, it's Retro. Welcome to another video. I got another Superman video for y'all. Last month I did a Superman redemption with New 52 Superman, one of my favorite iterations of the character. During that time when I was reading New 52, I also decided to read Bendis. I decided to read Michael Bendis' Superman and Action Comics, as you can see by the title below. I think Superman by Bendis is the best modern Superman run ever. Don't quote me on that. But I'm gonna stick to those guns. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. Superman by Bendis is truly one of the best modern Superman comics that you could read. My money, it's the best one. I don't think it's perfect. Same way, like I don't think Superman by Grant Morrison is perfect, but I think that this is not perfect in a different sense. Bendis's Superman is very mature. It's what I think Superman sounded like, or should have sounded like, in the 90s and the early thousands before New 52. I love like Bendis's use of ego in the series. It really does showcase like how human Superman is, because yeah, he does have ego. He does think he is the best at everything, and well, he is the best at, he's a Superman. And there are time and time again where, you know, outside forces kind of challenge him and challenge his ego as well. There are a lot of times where Superman is downright angry in this series and he has to force himself to calm down. I think that is exceptional writing for the character. If you're going to write a character who can do anything and can learn anything, the best way to make him relatable is to make him fallible, make him seem like he's not perfect. I feel like a lot of people fall into that trap where they prop up Superman as this paragon of, you know, perfection. But he's not a god. He is very human. He's very fallible. He's very relatable. He's supposed to be very relatable. Just because he has all these superpowers does not make him less human, because there are metahumans who are human and they have all these powers. That doesn't make them less human. Where am I going with this? Let's just start with the beginning. Man of Steel by Michael Bendis and Ivan Reis. I hate this story. I know I'm saying that Bendis' Superman is the best, and I'm starting with the story that doesn't really work for me. Man of Steel is Bendis' like introduction to Superman. It's a mini series that comes out that is essentially introducing this new character called Rogol-Zar, and Rogol-Zar is actually the person behind Krypton's demise. It's a weird retcon to have. It also hints at what's gonna happen to John Kent, for example, and also Lois Lane. Man of Steel is Bendis at his most Bendis. It's Bendis doing Avengers Disassembled. It's Bendis doing Dark Reign. It's Bendis doing all of these things where he flips the character and his, you know, and his status quo on its head and goes from there. That's Bendis at his best. While this story is not the best, I don't really care for how it's told. It's kind of flashing back and forth between Superman's battle with Rogol-Zar and this feudalness that like he really can't beat him. You know, it keeps like flashing back to this moment where Clark, Lois, and John are being faced with this figure. Because I already read the series, like I already knew who the character was. It was Jor-El. It was, you know, Superman's father. And by the end we find out it's Jor-El who has come to essentially take John Kent and make him a man. It's strange. I don't know. I think like if you're reading this without knowing, yeah, it makes sense. Like I see what Bendis was going for. This like impending doom kind of feeling that something is about to happen, but he cuts it off right before it happens. And then every issue, like we get that like same couple like pages, we finally find out like who this person is at the end. I don't think it was executed very well. I don't think the story was executed very well. Rogol-Zar's resolution happens within Superman by Bendis, the main run. But for now, Man of Steel is kind of just this introduction. We find out he has this extremely powerful force that Superman can't fight. Every single time they fight, it's not a stalemate. Superman gets his ass whooped. And that's okay. Like Superman he's not impervious. You know, when it comes to somebody who is just as strong as him, of course, like it's gonna happen. He's gonna get his ass kicked. We find out that like this Rogol-Zar Superman battle happens after Jor-El takes John Kent and Lois Lane. And the whole impetus is that just like Jor-El comes back we find out that he actually escaped Krypton by himself in a last-ditch effort, and he's been throttled through space and time, and he finally made his way back to his son and finds him. And he finds out that he has a son, and he's like, okay, even though your son is half Kryptonian, I do want to step up as a grandfather and teach him what it means to be a man. Teach him what it means to be Kryptonian. I want to show him the universe. I want to show him space. I want to go on a space adventure with him. A space odyssey, if you will. It's an interesting idea. I think that like it leads into the main Superman run, and it's great. The main Superman run is actually great. Bendis understands adult Superman. It is the best voice for adult Superman that has ever existed. And we end up finding out like what John Kent goes through. This is how John Kent ages up, if you didn't know. John Kent is originally supposed to be like 13, 14. He's supposed to be around Damian Wayne's age. At this time, Damian, I believe, is 13. When John Kent comes back, he's like 17, I think. John is 17 and Damian is still 13. It does create this distance between John and Damian, which is unfortunate. I know a lot of people really like the Super Sons comic. I did too. I thought it was a lot of dumb fun, but I do think that like it was going to trap these characters at a teenage age. Do I wish that John and Damian aged up together? Absolutely. I wish they were both 17 at the same time, and they kind of continued that Super Sons, story, and allowed them to be teenagers, maybe super teens, whatever. I don't know what the hell they were gonna call it, and maybe that was the problem, but whatever. I think that like while that it was kind of a mistake to leave Damian Wayne out, I do think that Bendis does a lot for John Kent as a character while aging him up, and it's not artificial. A lot of times when you age a character up, it's artificial. It's now they're teenagers. Now they're gonna have a lot of teenage angst. I don't think. To me personally, I don't think it transpired that way. I genuinely believe that John Kent, you saw the struggle that he went through as a kid and while he was aging up, and you get a genuine sense of the kid that he grew up to be. Like, he is hardened. To me, it was a lot better than the way a certain writer, Tom Taylor, wrote John Kent, because the whole impetus is the fact that like John Kent was captured by Ultraman. Ultraman is Superman from Earth 2, who is essentially evil Superman, and he captured him in a volcano, and for years he was his prisoner. John Kent hated Ultraman, and the weird thing is that in Tom Taylor's Superman run, John Kent goes to the Injustice universe and ends up hugging his father there, an evil dictator fascist Superman. Very, very weird. I don't understand what's going on, but that's not the point. I genuinely like how Bendis wrote John Kent. I think he gave him a lot of conflict that allowed him to grow up and be a teenager. He doesn't feel like a super brat. He feels like someone who has gone through shit and is trying to deal with it. And I feel like that's amazing. I appreciate Bendis's take on Superman a lot more than Superman Rebirth. I think that Superman Rebirth aged like milk. It's not great. There is merit in wanting a father-son type of story, type of run for Superman and John Kent, and that's fine. For a long while, it's actually pretty good. But then it kind of just gets weird, because at this time, like, Superman was kind of painted as like, he was really painted as a figure of America, so they made him moderate. When Superman is supposed to be like radically left. In my opinion, he's not supposed to represent or like the military. He's not supposed to like the military. He understands like what the military represents. And I'm not gonna say that Bendis rewrites that, but I think that Bendis does an amazing job of rewriting Superman as a humanist, as someone that genuinely cares for human life and genuinely cares for how sacred human life is and how sacred life is. And to me, that's enough to kind of just say that, like, obviously he cares about all people and not for America. Like, no, he cares for the world. He wants the world to be in a better place. He is the man of tomorrow, straight up. He represents truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. That's what I think that like this run kind of showcases the best. In general, like the Superman title run is just a phenomenal showcasing of Superman's character. You do get a point where Superman reveals his identity, and he's going back and forth about it because he's not entirely sure that he can be genuinely himself while hiding who he is as a person. It's great because when he shows people like Perry, his newspaper editor, like they have this like very sweet moment together. And when he tells Lois Lane that he's gonna tell the truth, like they have this like genuine adult talk about like how that makes him feel, how that will work for Lois Lane. It's a very adult and contemporary comic, and it's something that I didn't really expect out of Superman. Something that like you want for Superman, you want for that character, but you don't really get. And Bendis really does use that into the character. It feels like an adult can read this and really just genuinely like get something out of it, where they can read it and they can learn to be more vulnerable. They can learn to be more truthful with themselves, because some people battle with that issue even at an adult age. It's very interesting. I really, really, really genuinely love that. That's Superman. There's no like overarching like story. The main plot that is, that's carried over from Man of Steel is the Rogol Zaar situation. We find out that Jor-El was a part of this conspiracy with Krypton that ended up being the demise of Krypton. And we find out that Rogol Zaar was tasked to essentially destroy Krypton at its core. And we find out that Rogol Zaar is also Kryptonian too. There's a lot of things that happen that kind of just like flip, the Superman mythos on its head. Stuff that like genuinely did not happen before. Before we found out that it was just the Science League on Krypton that wasn't listening to Jor-El. In some stories, Val-Zod was going to work with Jor-El to help Krypton, but then just things just did not work out that way, and Val-Zod got imprisoned in the Phantom Zone. There's a lot of things that like happened that over the years. I think this is one of those retcons on Krypton that actually works. I think that Krypton's demise coming from a conspiracy is very interesting. It's a very adult message to have for a world that is looked upon as being very advanced, but not really. I think that Superman is a phenomenal comic run. Yeah, honestly, one of the best Superman stories that you could read. I have Superman by Grant Morrison above it, but that's simply because it's golden age Superman, like to its core. And I like that Grant Morrison incorporated different ages of Superman into each story arc. But I think that Bendis' Superman is more contemporary. It's more like a prototypical Superman story. Like if you want to just get Superman as a character, if you want to if you just want a modern story about like who Superman is and some breadcrumbs about like Krypton, and understanding like who he is as an adult, as a like full-grown adult husband and father, this is where you go to. Superman by Grant Morrison is more so understanding young Superman and getting to know like who he becomes when he gets to that age. I still think it's phenomenal though. I love Bendis' take on Superman. He has an amazing voice for Superman, and the art throughout this series is amazing. Ivan Rice is phenomenal. We even have Kevin Maguire drawing some of the issues as well, and it's just like it looks amazing. It genuinely looks amazing. This book is the best looking Superman comic you can read, but also like genuinely one of the best written as well. It is true to form contemporary. And then you have Action Comics, which is on the flip side. Action Comics is a little bit more interwoven with Superman. While it's kind of complicated to explain. Superman as a series is more standalone. Action Comics kind of deals with some of the consequences of what happens in Superman. After Lois Lane leaves to go with Jor-El and John Kent, she does eventually come back. And in Superman, we just kind of skip the first meeting. He just meets up with her again, and they move forward. Action Comics actually leads and shows how he finds out that Lois Lane is back and what she's been doing and everything like that. She's writing a book. She's undercover. She's not really hiding from Superman, but it's just essentially like she wants this alone time to finish this book. And if Superman was there, he would have to read it. And I think it like opens up this conversation of like, two adults who are married, they don't have like this space. They don't have like alone time because they're always together. And it's a very interesting way to kind of just like have them have this conversation and resolve it. They end up understanding. They come to understanding. Superman allows her that space, allows her to create and be her own person and be that writer that she wants to be, and lets her be. It's fascinating. I love the way she's written there. Action Comics as a whole is written. It's more about the newspaper. It even follows the newspaper a lot more, the Daily Planet. I love the way it's presented, because every issue, like, it starts up with someone's desk with an article on a computer screen, some notes around, and it kind of just like telling you like what may happen in this issue. I love that idea. I love how comics are able to just, you know, present stuff like that, a credits page kind of telling you what's going on through art, without it being like exposition, without it being a summary or synopsis in the beginning of an issue. It's fascinating. I love when a comic is crafted as well as that. Great comic book. I don't want to delve too much into the story for both of these series, because I think genuinely, read it. The highlights of these runs isn't really the story that is told, even though they are really good. It's more so necessarily the craft that goes into it, and the way Superman is written, the way it's kind of bringing Superman to an adult audience, while it's still being like, it can be for kids and they can still learn something from it. It's the most contemporary Superman has ever been. It's a shame too, because like, I remember when this comic was coming out, I was one of those people that did not like this run. I don't know why. The whole reason I'm making this video is because I reread it recently, and I was stunned and shocked by how much I genuinely loved this comic. And it's so strange. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what was wrong with the comic community back when this comic was coming out. I know the marketing was very bad. It was like, I'll show it on the screen, but it's horrible tagline. Don't ever do something like that. They already make fun of Bendis's name. It's horrible wording. But genuinely, like, this comic is great, and I don't know why people didn't like this story. I know Superman revealing his secret identity is a polarizing thing to do, but I don't think it's a bad idea. I know there is this issue with superhero comics right now where a lot of superheroes don't have a secret identity. They're all pretty out in the open. But I don't think that it's a bad thing that Superman revealed. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing what Superman did from a story standpoint. Jesus Christ. I don't think it's a bad thing what Superman did from a story standpoint. I think it works very well. Does it put Lois Lane and, you know, John Kent in danger? Not really. Superman in this run, you even get Bendis introduced this idea that Superman is always listening. For like keywords to, like, you know, stop crime. He's not always listening in on what everybody's doing, but he kind of like focuses in and hones in on like trigger words, stuff that would be clear that, oh, somebody is in danger. I thought that was a brilliant idea to introduce. And you had like moments where a criminal was doing something, and he told him straight up like not to talk so loud because Superman is listening. And fair enough, he was. It's a phenomenal Superman comic. If you were like me and you did not like this run, go back, read it. Man of Steel is not the best comic ever, but I do think Superman by Bendis and Action Comics by Bendis are great stories. I'll have the issues down here about what to read, how to read it. Action Comics does go into Event Leviathan, which is kind of like all the clandestine organizations like Argus and Task Force X were taken down. Leviathan as a villain is interesting. I think that the event is decent. I don't think it's like amazing, but I do think it's a nice like breakup of the Action Comics run, and then where Action Comics takes it after that is very interesting. I like the resolution. I like Superman's resolve at the end of that event and at the end of Action Comics. I do think, unfortunately, the art at the end of Action Comics is not the best. I love John Romita Jr. I think he is a phenomenal artist. I just think his time, I don't think his time has passed, but I think that some people just need to I think all editorial need to understand that his best inker is not Klaus Janson, and that it is Scott Hanna. He needs a good colorist. John Romita Jr. is a legend, and I love him dearly. He drew some of the best Spider-Man comics ever. He drew some of the best X-Men comics ever. But he's an acquired taste for a lot of people, and a lot of new readers are not gonna like his art. I'm gonna be straight up. Even though at times it is brilliant, but you know, it's an acquired taste, and I recognize that as someone who loves his work. I recognize that wholeheartedly. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Bendis's Superman and Action Comics run. If you've read it, let me know what you guys' thoughts in the comments section. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.